Namaste and welcome. If you are someone who is doing well on paper, you are responsible, capable, intelligent, hardworking, you get things done, people respect you, and yet somewhere inside you feel tired in a way that sleep is not fixing, dry in a way that success is not touching, and hollow in a way that even your best days are not fully healing. Then this episode is for you. Because one of the great silent struggles of our time is this: a person can look fine from the outside and still feel deeply disconnected from within. A person can be productive, respected, high functioning, high achieving, and yet feel inwardly dimmed. And I want to begin by saying this very clearly: there is nothing wrong with you for feeling this way. You are not weak. You are not lazy, you are not broken, and you are not ungrateful. Very often, you are simply running a life that is demanding too much from your system without giving your deeper being what it truly needs. And that is a very different problem. I want to speak about this today not just as a coach, not just as a teacher, but as someone who has lived at the intersection of two worlds. On one side, I have lived inside rigorous academic and scientific environments for many years. I studied statistics deeply, then bioinformatics and genomics, then completed a PhD and later worked in advanced research environments in the United States, including public health and medical research settings. So I understand performance culture. I understand intellectual pressure. I understand deadlines, standards, output, expectation, achievement, and the subtle exhaustion that comes from constantly needing to function at a high level. But on the other side, long before any of that, I was shaped by a very different foundation. I grew up in a Vedic educational environment from a young age. From around the age of 10, I lived and studied for many years in residential, monastic, and Gurukul style institutions where mantra, sacred sound, discipline, prayer, introspection, and spiritual culture were not abstract ideas. They were part of daily life. So when I speak about mantra, inner depletion, and restoration, I'm not speaking from borrowed theory. I'm speaking from lived experience. I have seen both kinds of intensity: the intensity of the intellect and the intensity of the inner practice. And what I have observed again and again is this: many high performers today are not only physically tired, they are existentially tired. That is a very important distinction. Physical tiredness says, I need rest. Existential tiredness says, I have been away from myself for too long. Physical fatigue may improve with sleep, food, hydration, or maybe a weekend off. But existential fatigue remains. It lingers even after a vacation. It sits there even after a scrumptious meal. It whispers even after applause. It follows you even after your tasks are completed. And it often sounds like this: I do not know why I feel so flat. Why am I doing so much and feeling so little? Why does everything feel heavy even when I am doing okay? Why do I feel emotionally dry? Why can I solve problems all day long and yet feel disconnected from my own life? If you have ever felt any of these, you are not alone. And more importantly, your experience makes sense because most high achievers are trained to strengthen only one dimension of life: the doing self. The doing self knows how to perform, it knows how to deliver, it knows how to organize, optimize, respond, manage, and endure. But the deeper self, the inner being, the subtle emotional spiritual core of a human life cannot be nourished by output alone. You cannot KPI your way into wholeness. You cannot hustle your way into peace. You cannot overachieve your way into inner aliveness. And this is where many brilliant people begin to suffer silently. Because from the outside, their life appears functional, but inwardly, they are undernourished. Now, let me make this even more precise. In my observation, especially among sincere, responsible, high capacity people, inner emptiness often comes from at least four kinds of depletion. The first is constant outward expenditure. Your attention is always going outward to work, to responsibilities, to devices, to emails, to messages, to deadlines, to people's expectations, to the next thing. When attention is constantly spent outward and never gently returned inward, the inner field becomes neglected. The second is absence of sacred pause. And by sacred pause, I do not necessarily mean religion in a narrow sense. I mean moments in the day where you are no longer producing, no longer proving, no longer reacting, and no longer performing. Moments where you are simply returning to being. Without that, life becomes a continuous transaction and the soul becomes thirsty. The third is fragmentation of the inner instrument. In the Vedic view, the human being is not just a body with a brain. We are a layered being: body, breath, mind, memory, attention, emotion, identity, intellect, consciousness. When these layers are constantly agitated, overstimulated, and pulled in different directions, a person may still appear successful, but inwardly they feel scattered. And when inner fragmentation continues long enough, even joy becomes difficult to access. And the fourth is lack of contact with meaning. This is a big one. Many people are not tired because they are working hard. They are tired because they are working hard without regular contact with inner meaning, devotion, beauty, reverence, or spiritual anchoring. Human beings can endure a lot when the heart is connected. But when the heart dries out, even ordinary life begins to feel heavy. And that is why a person can say, my calendar is full, but my inner life feels empty. Now, this is where I want to introduce a very important insight. The opposite of burnout is not merely rest, the opposite of burnout is reconnection. Let that sink in. The opposite of burnout is not merely a break, it is a return to rhythm, a return to stillness, a return to breath, a return to what is sacred, a return to what restores the subtle dimensions of your being. And this is one of the reasons I care so deeply about mantra yoga. Because mantra is not merely sound, it is not merely tradition, it is not merely chanting for the sake of chanting. At its deepest, mantra is a way of recollecting the self. It gathers scattered attention, it purifies mental noise, it gives the breath a sacred rhythm, it nourishes the emotional field, it offers the mind a place to rest without going dull, and it gives the heart a way to participate in healing. For a busy professional, this is profound because what many people need is not another productivity system. They need an inner stabilizing force. They need a way to stop leaking themselves. They need a way to feel inwardly accompanied again. And from my own life, having lived in both deeply spiritual and deeply analytical worlds, I can say this with conviction. A human being becomes far more powerful, not less powerful, when they are inwardly anchored. Mantra does not make you passive. True practice can make you clearer, steadier, less reactive, more alive, more discerning, more rooted in what matters. And perhaps most importantly, it helps you stop living from the surface of yourself. So, if today's episode resonates with you, I want you to reflect on one simple question: am I truly tired? Or have I become disconnected from the deeper sources that make me feel alive? That question alone can begin changing something. Because once you stop blaming yourself, once you stop pathologizing your exhaustion, and once you begin recognizing that your deeper being requires nourishment too, a new path becomes possible. A gentler path, a truer path, a more powerful path. And that is exactly why I am creating this series, to help busy, high performing professionals understand that there is another way to live, a way that does not ask you to abandon excellence, but asks you to root excellence in something deeper. And if this conversation starts something in you, I want to warmly invite you to my upcoming live workshop on mantra yoga, precision chanting, and daily sadhana for busy professionals. In that workshop, I will go much deeper into how mantra works, why it matters so much in modern life, and how to begin practicing in a way that is grounded, authentic, and sustainable. And for those who stay until the end, I will also share how you can continue this journey with me at a deeper level if that feels aligned for you. Also, as a small heartfelt gesture for this podcast community, I'm keeping a 10% community coupon available for the first 25 people who registered through this invitation, not as pressure, but as a sincere welcome. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening with your heart. And most of all, thank you for not giving up on the deeper part of yourself. Until next time, may you return not just to productivity, but to inner aliveness.